I saw an opportunity for women to tell their stories, for women to share how they got to where they are, and also to share that there's room at the table for all of us. So this is something that, from my own growth perspective as a marketer, I thought, okay, this is going to give me another set of tools in terms of content development. And then this community that I want to build is a community where we're supporting one another, where we're celebrating one another, and most of all, we're inspiring and we're learning from each other.
Welcome to Warriors at Work. This is Jeanie Coomber, your guide and host. Warriors at Work is a place where everyone in the workplace can come together, gain insight, encouragement, tell stories, connect, and share wisdom. We are a place of like-minded people at different stages of life, all coming together with a shared interest of enlightening and inspiring one another. If you're interested in going from the predictable to the potent, and you want to find your warrior magic, step into the journey with us. Welcome to Warriors at Work.
Hey everybody, it's Jeanie. Thank you so much for joining me here at the Warriors at Work podcast. Today, I had the opportunity to interview an award-winning marketer, Elisa Padilla. Elisa has a diverse background in sports and entertainment. She's worked with high visibility brands like the Miami Marlins, the Brooklyn Nets, the New York Islanders. She's also worked in various organizations like Apple, the NBA, Nickelodeon, just to name a few. And we do two things in this conversation. Yes, we talk about her journey to becoming an executive in the sports marketing world. And then we also talk about what happened when she got furloughed. Elisa did something extraordinary. She channeled her affinity for being in service and helping other people and created lunchtime conversations on Instagram Live for women in leadership in the sports marketing world. She saw an opportunity where in a male-dominated business, they needed to tell their story. They wanted to talk more about what inspires them, what challenges them, and recognize that those stories can inspire and encourage other people. And in her own words, she talks about how she sees herself as someone who's here to pay it forward and help other people. Kickin It with EP, lunchtime conversations on Instagram Live has taken off. Elisa has interviewed over 100 leaders, and there's no chance of stopping this. So it is my pleasure to bring to you Elisa Padilla. Welcome to the Warriors at Work podcast. This is Jeanie Coomber, your guide and host, and I am thrilled to have Elisa Padilla with me today. I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you. And where I wanted to start is I want to talk a little bit about you, your background, and then we're going to get into the story of Elisa. So you are an award-winning marketer. You've worked with very high visibility brands, things like Miami Marlins, the NBA Nets. You've also worked with the New York City Islanders, which is like three different sports. That's like a whole nother thing. You've also worked at Apple. You've worked in Nickelodeon, HBO, AT&T. I mean, clearly you have a real gift and skill as a marketer. But I would love for you to describe yourself. Who are you in the world?
First of all, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak with you today. I'm excited to be here, and congratulations for all the amazing work that you've done with Warriors at Work. I'm a huge fan. So I consider myself to be a daughter, a sister, a wife, an aunt, a godmother, and then a marketer, right? Because I think that what I've learned in the past, 18 plus months is that a title really doesn't define who you are. But on the professional side, I consider myself to be a marketer that is honed in on consumer marketing, storytelling, creative marketing, and building community. I have had the privilege to be in sports and entertainment for over 2 decades, and I've had the opportunity to, work on the greatest brands. And the key takeaway from that work is that it's all about the fan base and creating that brand affinity so that you're able to capture, not only to get fans to come to the ballpark or the arena, but also to get them to watch you on TV, to listen to you on the radio, and also to buy your merchandise, right? Because when people buy your merchandise, they're a walking billboard. So I think that connectivity, that one-to-one brand to fan connection, is something that I'm very, very proud of what I've been able to accomplish.
You know what's so interesting too, and even how you talk about it, you you have so much heart, and when I can imagine when you're in the middle of a lot of these big brand launches and rebranding, you have such an ability, and we're going to get into this because I saw it live on how you lead these lunchtime conversations. You have such a natural ability to connect and make other people feel at ease and create such a powerful dynamic. So I just want to say that out of the gate. I'm not surprised to hear you say some of those attributes on how you would talk about yourself. I would love to hear the story. Now, I read a little bit about this in some interview that someone did with you, but I would love for you to tell the story. Like, why did you get into sports marketing?
So, ironically enough, when I was an undergrad, I had to do an internship as part of my program, and I originally wanted to be in television. I wanted to be behind a camera, because I wanted to capture the stories. And I did an internship at Madison Square Garden Network. And 2 weeks into the internship, I'm like, I don't want to work in television. This isn't for me. But I was so lucky that where I sat next to the advertising, marketing, and sales people, so that on a daily basis, I could hear what they were doing. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. I'm more interested in what they're doing than what I'm doing in this internship. So when I went back to school, my fall semester of my senior year, I took my very first marketing class, fell in love with it. And sports marketing, I don't want to date myself, but sports marketing had just started to bubble up as a career. And I thought to myself, this is what I want to do. I want to work in sports. And what I love about marketing is the psychological part of it, where you are telling a brand story and making consumers believe that they need and want your product. And I thought, okay, you know what? To be in a role where you can influence, you know, consumer behavior, I was totally fascinated. So that's how I got into sports marketing.
Did you have brothers?
Yes. Yes.
And did they force you to play sports when you were little?
No. So this is the funny thing is, so I'm one of six, and I grew up in a very traditional Hispanic household. Girls weren't allowed to play sports. So my older brother was the star of the basketball team. And that's how I fell in love with basketball, because we would go, our family outings were to go see him play basketball. And we were his sisters, his mom, his dad were his cheerleaders. So that's when, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to get into sports marketing. I want to work in sports. I want to work in basketball, because my love for the game grew from not only watching my brother, but from our family outings. So basketball is very near and dear to my heart.
Which leads me to my next question, because I read a lot about you, and you've had so many different career defining moments. And the one that really drew me in was moving the Nets from New Jersey to Brooklyn, and that whole rebranding. And you talked a lot about this in an interview of what that took to engage the community and really understand, to your point, the psychology. So I'd love for you to tell us, what that was like and what you took
Yeah.
from that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So I joined the Nets in November of 2010, and they had just announced that they were moving to Brooklyn officially. 18 months down the road. So I joined the team as director of marketing, and my day job was to sell tickets to the Nets at Prudential Center, where we were a lame duck tenant. And the governor at the time had already said, the Nets can leave. We don't want you here. So there was this feeling that it's just like, okay, we just have to play out the season. And in the evenings, I would sit up, in the bowels of Prudential Center along with teammates, and we would be working on what the Nets were going to look like in Brooklyn. So it was like we had a day job and a night job. And what I will say is that I worked with an incredible team of people, not only internally, but also with our external marketing agency. And we did everything from understanding the borough of Brooklyn, doing research to understand the characteristics of Brooklynites. We did research on whether our season ticket holders were going to move from New Jersey to Brooklyn. And once we got all this data and all this information, it was like, okay, we knew that our fan base, less than 10%, were going to move with us to Brooklyn. We knew that Brooklynites were starving for a team to call their own, because the year that we were moving into Brooklyn would have been, or was, the 43rd year that the Dodgers left Brooklyn to go to LA.
Wow.
So they were hungry for a team to call their own. We were a team that was building a new home in downtown Brooklyn in this neighborhood. So we saw a lot of opportunity. And the one thing after we got all the research was we were thinking about the characteristics of Brooklynites. They're very, very prideful. They feel like they're the best borough in New York. They're just very, they have an attitude about them. So we knew that from our perspective, we only had one time to make a first impression. And what I said to the team, I was like, hey, as we're working through this, we need to have the brand voice come from within the borough and not at the borough. We can't be the big bad NBA Nets coming in, because they're not going to receive us well. And so my biggest takeaway from that whole experience, other than living and breathing and making sure that we didn't misstep with the first impression, was that you really need to understand your target audience. Because we went into Brooklyn, we launched our campaign was Hello Brooklyn, very humble, very in a very approachable manner. And the day that we launched, we did this grassroots program where we handed out these booklets that said fans since day one. So it was from day one that we were telling them, hey, this is your team. You now have a team to call your own. So it was very, very rewarding. And it's till this day, and I left the Nets in 2017. And till this day, I feel like the Nets are my baby. I watch what they're doing. I see how they portray the brand, because there was so much sweat, tears, and love that went into that brand transformation, that for me, they'll always have a special place in my heart.
How long did it take from like the start to the place where you're like, okay, we have connection, we have partnership here with the community?
Well, I can tell you that prior to my joining the team, the folks within the community department were already seeding and doing events in Brooklyn. But it really took, I want to say, that when I look at that 18 roadmap, I think 12 months out, Jeanie, it was like, okay, these guys are ready for us. And now we have to figure out what the messaging is. We need to figure out how we're going to introduce ourselves to make sure that, they embrace us from day one.
Such a thoughtful appreciation for where they were too. I think that's a real key piece that I heard from that messaging is you really approached it to say, where are they right now in their experience before we come in and tell them how they should be thinking and feeling. Let's meet them where they are and then go from there. Oh, I love that story. Which there's another thing that I learned about you. When this is with sponsorship Space Magazine, there was a question to you about your career path at the time of the Brooklyn Sports and Entertainment, when you moved from director to chief marketing officer. And I want to read a quote, and then I would love for you to tell me your thoughts. They asked you the question about, that's a big jump, right? From director to CMO. I put my head down and worked. I focused on delivering the best work I could put forth to help the business move forward. I surrounded myself with really smart people and make sure to add value to everything that I did. I wasn't chasing a promotion. Now, everybody listening and watching is like, oh, that's a good one. I wasn't chasing a promotion. I was always chasing the best work. Please give some thought to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I started at the Nets, I felt like, okay, I've reached my goal. I'm director of marketing for an NBA team, which is what I had always wanted. I went to graduate school to make sure that I was prepared from an educational perspective. I did everything to get this job. So when I got the job, I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep this job. So I'm going to come in every single day and I'm going to earn my chair. And as opportunities continued to present themselves, I never took them for granted. So when I started, it took me 14 months to get promoted to vice president. And when I got promoted to vice president, I was like, wow, this is like a big deal, right? And then the next promotion was senior vice president. And I was like, wow, okay, this is in less than 5 years, I've become an SVP. And I know for a fact that I didn't get those promotions. Yes, it was my work that earns me the opportunities and earns me the promotion. However, I had a team of people that I had to lead to deliver the work and to help move the business forward. So I never took those people for granted, whether they were internal or external. And when I got promoted to chief marketing officer, it was a jump. It took me 5 years, and the proudest moment of my career. And I can't pinpoint the exact date or the exact what happened. But when I got promoted from vice president to SVP, somewhere along that journey, it stopped being about me. And it started being about others. So I would wake up in the morning and I had two goals in mind. One was to create opportunities for my team who were helping me move the business forward. And number two was to make my boss look good, because if my boss looked good, then we all looked good, then it was a win-win situation. So I share that with you very candidly because that was a defining moment in my leadership style, in my awakening, if you will, about service to others. And it wasn't when I was a director, it wasn't that I wasn't thinking about others. I was just so focused on my own work, right? So as you go up the corporate ladder, it's less and less about the individual work as an individual contributor. It's about motivating people to do the work so that everyone is successful. So I think that was very critical, because at the end of the day, as the chief marketing officer for Brooklyn Sports and Entertainment, I was leading a team of 62 people, all different personalities, all different at different levels of their career trajectory. And for me, I had to make sure that I kept them focused on moving the business forward. So it was never about chasing the next promotion or, the next big thing. It was about how do we continue to deliver excellent work, because by delivering excellent work, we're setting everybody up for success, and more opportunities will come to the team.
I love that. I mean, there's so much in there. There's shared purpose. Everybody knows the mission, but everybody's working towards a collective goal. You were able to really identify that as a leader. I was just talking with somebody earlier today around the idea of you can't be a leader unless you have followers.
Right.
And it's acknowledging that everybody needs to be moving in the same direction and we all win. I love that. So I'm curious, where does that mindset, or where is that something you learn just over the course of your career? Or do you feel that mindset or those set of values or those principles come from your upbringing?
To be honest, I think that I feel like it was instilled in me from growing up. I come from a very humble family, a very humble background. My parents were both blue collar workers who instilled the importance of education in us. And, I remember my father growing up, my father always made it a point to ensure that we treated everyone equally. It didn't matter who they were or what their status was. So I think that understanding and being respectful of other people and their space and their place in the world, I think that being instilled in me as a young child and as I was growing up really has helped me in the way that I lead and, how I've developed my leadership skills, because it's really not about me. And what I mean by that is when you're in a leadership position and you're given responsibility, you're now accountable not only for your career, but for everyone else that you're responsible for, right? So unless you're mindful, how are they going to help you move the business forward? Then you're just not going to be successful, is the way that I see it.
I love it. Well, let's fast forward to now.
Yeah.
So in 2020, you were furloughed and you saw an opportunity to get into service. And when we first started talking, I don't mind even sharing this, I got emotional when I heard Elisa share this story, because it was so aligned with the work I'm doing in the world and this whole platform. So I felt so humbled and grateful to meet you and know that you're doing similar work in the world. So what Elisa did is she saw an opportunity to get into service, to get into conversation. In the sports marketing world, there's not a lot of women in leadership roles. So what Elisa did is she started to do these lunchtime conversations twice a week with various female leaders in the sports marketing world, all in an effort to inspire and encourage others to step forward, to share their wisdom, and to be in service to one another. And it's called Kickin It with EP.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that you're doing this work, and I've watched quite a few of these interviews, but I'd love for you to describe what the experience has been like for you and what you're getting from it.
Yeah,
Clearly
absolutely.
providing an amazing platform.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that for me, it's to echo your sentiment. I saw an opportunity for women to tell their stories, for women to share how they got to where they are, and also to share that there's room at the table for all of us. So this is something that, from my own growth perspective as a marketer, I thought, okay, this is going to give me another set of tools in terms of content development. And then this community that I want to build is a community where we're supporting one another, where we're celebrating one another, and most of all, we're inspiring and we're learning from each other. So I've had over close to 100 conversations, and what's amazing to see is that the audience, number one, is super engaged. Number two, I now have people reaching out to me who want to make recommendations to get people on the IG live. Or, I giggle inside every time, and Jeanie, you'll appreciate this, when they say, "Oh, your show." And I'm like, "Oh, my show." Right. But it's like, it's not a show. It's a conversation.
Yeah.
But, and what I'm getting out of it is just, I'm learning and I'm being inspired on a weekly basis by these women who are telling their stories that if 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 I didn't provide the opportunity, I don't know whether they would be able to tell their stories, right? So, and I'm not saying, look, I'm building this community, one person at a time. And it's something that I feel like the Nets, it's like my other baby. But this is really about service. And this is really about giving women and highlighting women and showcasing that, you know what, if someone else can do it, you can do it. And we can learn from each other.
And you do have some men that have come onto the platform to participate. So I'm curious how you've infused men into the conversation and what the experience has been like for them. Have they had any ahas?
So this is very interesting. So probably about 6 months in, I knew, I was like, you know what, I definitely want to start infusing men into the conversation, because they're our allies. They're the ones sitting in the boardroom that can take us into, can pull us in. And I kept going back and forth and back and forth. I'm like, I have to stay true to my mission of, why I started this. So for my 1 year anniversary, I had put in the LinkedIn group, I had put a question out who the audience wanted to see. And we went everywhere from Serena Williams to Billie Jean King. I mean, like all these like crazy names. And someone in the community said, Elisa, we want to hear from you. And I was like, no. I'm like, this platform isn't about me. And he wrote back and he was like, yes, we want to hear from you. And I said, well, I will only do it if you're the host. So he was our first male host, and he was fantastic.
And tell me his name again.
His name is Andrew Schwartz.
That's right.
And
That's right.
Andrew Schwartz. And he knocked it out of the park. And he was so cute, because when we got on the IG Live, he goes, look, I even color coordinated my shirt with your brand colors.
I remember that.
So I'm like, okay. But he was amazing. And I got such tremendous feedback. So that's how I want to start. So the next man that I'll have on will also be a host, because I think that gives everyone a different perspective, right? Just in regards to, it's still not walking away from the mission of lunchtime conversation, but it'll give us an opportunity to infuse our allies.
You know what was so interesting too, and I'm curious if he gave you this feedback, is the way he had to prepare for that interview. He had to get inside of your mind and think about it through the lens of being a female executive in a business that's very male dominated. And it really came across in the quality of his questions. I was curious, did he offer up any kind of ahas that he had going through that experience?
What was very interesting was he said to me, he's like, I need to prepare. And I was like, of course you need to prepare. So I was like, this is the only thing that I said to him. I said, it has to be snackable content. You cannot go over 20 minutes. So when he sent me the questions, he said, am I on track, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah. I was like, look, at the end of the day, you're the one who's interviewing. And what he said to me was that he thought it was such an incredible experience, because there were so many people who were so engaged during the lunchtime conversation that was like his aha moment, was like, wow, like I'm really making an impact here.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So what are you working towards, Elisa? Like what's the path of Kicking It with EP now?
I, sometimes think, it's like, I want to grow this. I want to, be an influencer in this space. I want to be a place where I could cultivate talent, where I could make connections. I want to start a newsletter. I want to start a YouTube channel. And I have like all these great ideas. And then I think back to, I want to grow the platform organically. And I want to continue to do the work that matters the most. So similar to my experience with the Nats, when I was, put my head down and delivered the best work, that's the way that I look at this also. I want to do the best work and grow it organically and not rush it because you only have one time to do things right. So I want to continue to have the conversations. I want to continue to build the community and, eventually, make it bigger and better when I feel that the time is right and that I'm not going to misstep.
And when you think about the 100 people that you've had on, and you just reflect just right now in your mind, what's like that one soundbite or experience or thought that hits you that you were like, wow, that was unbelievable?
Yeah, so it was, I know exactly who it was. She said, "What's meant for me will find me."
Mm. I just got the chills when you said that.
Yeah. And I was like, wow. And she said it with such confidence. And it's like whenever, as I'm going through this new journey of mine, I keep reminding myself, I'm like, what's meant for me will find me, because I believe in what she said, how she said it. And the other one that really, I'll cheat here and give you a second one that's really important, that has really been critical too, is I had one guest share that you should have your own personal board of directors. And, having a mentor is one thing, but having a group of people that could provide insight, that could guide you, is also, I thought, I was like, wow, that's so spot on.
It's like it's bringing so much more consciousness to what we're doing and how we're
Yeah.
doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious too, what when you think about the workplace, having talked to so many people around different leadership perspectives, what do you think the workplace needs more of or less of right now?
I think that the workplace needs more empathy. And I
Mm,
mean that wholeheartedly, from multiple lenses, right? That it's just not about work. I think that what the pandemic has shown us, and I'll tie it back to why I started Kick It by EP. How many women have left the workforce because they were forced to make the decision, because they didn't have childcare, because they were confined to their homes, and they couldn't figure it out. So I think that the workplace needs more empathy, that not everybody's traveling the same exact road, right? So everyone has different circumstances. And I think that the workplace needs less egos. Check the ego at the door. Check
Amen.
the, yeah, check the ego at the door, because at the end of the day, it's about the work, right? It doesn't matter who gets the credit. I mean, it's just like, if you can work together as a team, then and deliver the best work, then that's all that should matter.
How could we get people to have less egos? Hmm.
Well, I think that the way that I see it is that if you're confident in yourself and you believe in your skill set, then leaving the ego at the door shouldn't be a problem,
Mm,
because you're going to show up. You don't need a ribbon for every single, idea that you bring to the table. If you're that good, your confidence should carry you. I mean, that's the way that I see it, right? You don't have to push people out of the way to get to the front of the line. You're probably already at the front of the line
mm.
because you're that good. So I think that it should be a more about us than environment than a me environment.
What's meant for me will find me.
Yes.
See how it works? Perfect little segue there.
Yes.
So I always like to end my podcast with a couple of personal questions. And, what my intention here is to create a movement of doers and thinkers that are all in service to one another so that we're igniting and elevating the greatest parts of ourselves. But one of the things that's really important is we all have to have people that help us stay accountable to what we say we want to have. So, who are those crucial people in your life that are keeping you accountable?
Oh my goodness. So my life partner is the one person who keeps me accountable every single day. And second, I have a very, very good friend who we've been through the trenches. We worked together at the NBA for many, many years, and we keep each other accountable. And it's both ways, right? It's whenever, I don't know, she just knows me, and we refer to each other as two peas in a pod because we're so similar in thinking and our approach, that I would say that those are the two people that keep me accountable and keep me, laser focused on what I need to accomplish.
Another question is, I talk a lot about you can have intellect, but you can have intuition in the same sentence, and you can say soul and strategy without being freaked out. How do you see intuition playing a role in leadership?
Look, I think that your gut is everything. And I can tell you that I've made a lot of decisions based on my gut when data was giving me other information. And I think that going back to the confidence level and being confident in yourself to say, no, you know what? My intuition or something is pulling me in this direction. This is the recommendation I'm going to make, despite the fact that this is what this over here, or the data is telling me. I think it's important. And the other thing that's really important about that is to understand that sometimes you may follow your intuition and it's going to guide you in the wrong way. And when that happens, it's okay to acknowledge that that has happened and move on and learn from it. There have been many, I can think of many times in my career where, I felt my intuition was like leading me one way, and I'm like, no, not this time. Like, I know that I need to go this other direction because that's really where the right outcome is going to be for the business. And I would say that 95% of the time I was spot on. And on the days that I dug my heels in because my gut was telling me no, that's not the way to go, and I followed my gut, then I was 95% of the time right.
Love it. So
Yeah.
here's my last question. I always like to talk more around what's the stuff that we're working towards, we're struggling with. So tell us a little bit about your own warrior journey. What are the things that you're looking to improve upon, and try to work with as you're navigating your life and in your career?
Yeah, I think, you know what? I think because I'm in such a different place right now in my career in regards to I'm, figuring out my next success, is for me is showing up every single day confidently in what I've accomplished. Because one of the things that I learned in 2020 is that your title doesn't define you. You're still the same person. You're still you still have the same ideas. You still have you're still the same person. You just don't have a title, and you're not working for, a global company. And while that may be very difficult for many of us, it's something that through my journey, that is something that I've had to work on and not doubt myself, and kick the little, I refer to imposter syndrome as the little people in my head. I have to kick the little people out of my head because I have to remind myself that, you know what, I'm still the same person.
I call it the committee.
The committee.
Sometimes the crappy committee, but you're never quite sure who's in charge.
I love that.
The committee. It's a lot. It's a lot less sharp or jarring.
Yeah.
It's like it's just a committee, and sometimes the committee's in a bad mood. So actually, I'm going to ask you one more thing because I'm so curious, just based upon what you said. I would love one of the things that I talk about in this brand so much is what it looks and sounds like when we're at our best, and when we're just knocking it out of the park, and we're like so alive and so aligned with our vitality. I call it warrior magic. So let's end with, Lisa, what's your warrior magic? What are you bringing to the world?
Oh my goodness. That is such a hard question. I want to pay it forward. Someone gave me an opportunity to work in an industry that I loved, that I learned to love, and I was in for, a very, very, very long time. And I feel that my place now is to pay it forward and help open doors for others that want that same opportunity.
Oh, what a beautiful way to end this conversation. Elisa, thank you so much for being in this
Thank you.
conversation with me. I'm so thrilled for you. I'm so happy that we met, we connected. You're doing the work. You're helping so many people. You're bringing forth fantastic conversations. So everybody follow Kicking It with EP on Instagram. It's Tuesday, Thursdays, correct?
Yep,
Lunchtime?
at noon. Yep.
Noon Eastern Standard Time.
Yes.
So be well.
Yes. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks to everybody for listening to another episode of Warriors at Work and letting us be a part of your warrior journey. You can ask questions and make suggestions for future topics at jc@jeanniecoomber.com. Connect with me personally on LinkedIn and Instagram, and join us on the Warrior Conversations channel on YouTube and at the Warrior Magic Community page on Facebook. You can find links to all these places on my website, jeanniecoomber.com, and most importantly, be sure to tell friends about us, subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes, Spreaker, and Spotify. It helps others find the show and puts more warrior magic out into the world.